Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara Wayman, and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. My name is Mahara Wayman, and I am so excited today. I have Darla Radilla with us. Growing up in Alexandria, Virginia, and a graduate of T.C. Williams High School of Remember the Titans fame, Darla dreamed of becoming a teacher or a veterinarian. She's lived in Colorado, New Mexico, Washington State, and now resides in the Verde Valley of Arizona. After a career as an executive administrative assistant, Darla started her coaching business in April 2024. She loves hiking, reading, dancing, singing, and performing with local bands. Is it any wonder she's a guest on the Art of Badassery? Just you wait till you hear her story. Her journey into self-empowerment, though, began during a very challenging divorce, leading her to face the trauma of narcissistic abuse. Through resilience and support, she became a certified somatic trauma-informed coach, and her mission is to help women reclaim their power after narcissistic abuse. So grab your favorite drink, tune in and listen to her story as she shares her insights on healing and empowerment. Darla, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So, started with dreams of being a veterinarian and ended up in the corporate world.
Yes.
What were some of the acts of badassery that you experienced in that journey? We will definitely get to the ones that are going to be the focus of the show, but paint the picture from young Darla into corporate world.
Yes, some of those acts were, as a child, I didn't grow up in the greatest of homes. I had an abusive father and a mom who just did not protect me from him. So some of that badassery that was kind of percolating within me was realizing that I had to protect myself. Something within me rose up and I was able to defend myself against my father. And that kind of followed me throughout my life. One of the things I'm thinking of is I moved out 6 weeks after graduation and got my own apartment, signed a year lease. And that night was the scariest night of my life. If as an 18-year-old basic child, I could do that, nothing has been more scary than that. And so it's kind of gone from there. I've been taking these leaps and bounds, fast-tracked into adulthood. But once again, these are stepping stones into what was to come in my life.
I think it's important, this idea of our growth is a journey of stepping stones. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but when on my journey, I've kind of like, okay, God, give me the lesson. Oh, I've learned the lesson. Now, why isn't life perfect? I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but I've certainly fell into that feeling that how much is needed for me to see a difference? Like, what exactly do I need to do to get out of this place, to get into the place that I dream of? All right. So from a young age, you recognized the need to speak up for yourself.
Mhm.
How did you get through that first night?
A panic attack. I called my boyfriend at the time, who ended up being my husband, father of my child. Really kind of just talking myself down. Like, okay, it's done. You can't undo this. This is what you wanted. And to backtrack a little bit, it was something I had to do. Staying at home, going to college wasn't an option for me at that point in my life because my father was abusive. And I told my parents the day I turned 18, when I graduate from high school, I'm out. So there was this feeling of this is what I need to do to survive. So reminding myself of that night. And, each day I got up and took a deep breath and said, okay, it felt a little bit more easier and more comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, this idea of connecting with our why. I mean, that's kind of a coach lingo. What's your why? Why are you here? What do you want out of the world? But to make it really basic, you're either taking steps towards something or you're running away from something. and they can sometimes work in conjunction. The trick is, I think, having the courage to recognize it. So what I'm hearing is that you kind of went, you know what? The need is so great that I just, there's no discussion. It's got to be done, despite the fear or the uncomfortableness or the uncertainty. Whatever that is in the moment is better than where you've been. Total active badassery. So how did you end up in the corporate world?
My senior year of high school, I did a work study program where I went to school half a day and then they bused us. I grew up in Alexandria in a DC area. And so we would just take the metro, and I was a word processor during my senior year. And so this basically, you talk about the universe aligning things. This gave me the capability to move out. So I negotiated a full-time job after my graduation with them. So I started out as a word processor. It kind of went from there. Executive assistant work I did for a really long time. As my skills got better, I got into that. It was a great career, great money, but I demoted myself after a while because I had no work-life balance.
So let me just be really clear here. Did I hear you
Yeah,
say that while you were still in high school, you negotiated a full-time job that you knew was waiting for you once you graduated?
yeah, I did.
Okay, I want a sign that says badass.
Oh, thank you.
So I think we're of a similar generation. And when I think back to my graduation, I don't think I thought past the grad party and maybe going to college if I kind of felt like it. There wasn't, I just didn't have, I didn't think that big or long term. So good for you. Okay. What's one of the biggest things that you learned about yourself in this phase of corporate work? And you mentioned developing your skills. Outside skills, I get it, but I'm curious about the inside skills. What did you learn
Mhm.
about yourself on the inside as you navigated life?
Yeah. What came to mind was a job that I had, my last job in the DC area. I developed a lot of people skills, actually. I had this uncanny way of being a go-between, like that last job. I've always felt this way, that I want to develop a relationship with the janitor all the way up to the executives I worked for, and I treated them all the same. And what ended up happening is that we had a president and an organization who was very difficult. I ended up developing a really great relationship with her. She was a pineapple. She was like kind of, a little rough on the outside, but mush on the inside. And once we developed a rapport, we were both single moms, those kind of things. But I started going in between to the people that were afraid of her and saying, we need this, we need that. And I would sometimes sit her down and say, are you listening to what I'm saying? Do you understand how you're coming across? I would be that go-between, and that happened a lot in my career.
Another act of badassery. And can I say also a little bit of bravery? Did you feel that you had to sort of harness some courage to have that level of connection with a supposedly difficult person?
Indeed, because she was a bully, to be quite frank. Um, but there was a day. Um, so she had to go to a funeral, and there was an emergency at work, and a real emergency, and I really didn't know how to handle it. So I did try to like not contact her until after, but I didn't want to contact her at all. But there was a dispute the next day about how that went down, and I just kind of stood up and said, that's not how it happened. This is why, and this is what I did. And I think I earned her respect in that moment, because everybody else would like just cower. And I'm kind of outspoken, still am, but that earned her respect.
Do you think there may not be a connection at all, but do you think your upbringing and your need to protect yourself as you were growing up gave you the wherewithal to stand up for yourself in that situation?
Yeah, I do. My dad he was pretty, threatening for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so by the way, your energy is just amazing. So if you're not watching the video, check out the video that I'm going to be posting, because her smile is just lighting up the screen as she recounts these stories. What are some other things that you've learned about yourself, Darla, that have really played into your growth today?
hmm Definitely relationships. And I think that over the past 5 years, that has really grown. And particularly this year, um, growing up in a dysfunctional home, I did not have a model of what a healthy relationship looked like. And I had a lot of insecurities. So I attracted men who were emotionally unavailable. Not all were abusive. So that didn't happen until my mid 30s. But I seemed to attract people that I wanted to fix, or you know how we get into those patterns as women. Oh, look at that cute little professional development project. I think I'll fix him. But I had to learn, I think that divorce that I went through in 13, it literally destroyed me. I I was so in love with the man I thought he was. Um, I do believe that I had a nervous breakdown. I lost everything. I lost my money, my dignity, my home, everything. But because I am such a stubborn person, I think that had to happen. And then I've gradually rebuilt since that moment. And each relationship has taught me something. Even though it hurt, it knocked me down. Just got out of another one this year, last year. Some were short, some were long, but every one of them I've sat down and said, okay, while I'm not responsible for another person's behavior, what I am responsible for is my part in it. Why did I attract that? Why did I tolerate that? And then try to do better next time.
Were you always like that? For example, the man that was the father of your child,
Yeah.
after that breakup, were you that smart to ask yourself that question in your first marriage?
No. In fact, I was more codependent. At that point in my life, it was not a good situation. I should have left a long time before that. I was very unhappy, and I really didn't realize that, quite honestly, until I had lost some weight and I started hanging out in a bar. We would go see live music, and these men were paying attention to me. And at that point, I realized how lonely I was in the presence of him. And, he was not abusive. So I want to clarify that. But he just wasn't there. And to be honest, in his defense, I wasn't the greatest wife either. I was very controlling. I yelled a lot, but yeah, I was afraid of being alone. So I literally left my first husband and got in the relationship with my second husband before I walked out the door. I mean, it was not official, but you know how that it's still it, and that's not, and you know, I think this speaks for narcissists as well, because that's not in my character to cheat. It is not. And for me to do something so horrible that I've never done before or since shows how manipulative they can be and how they mess with your mind.
Was that your first experience with narcissistic behavior?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you went through that. I really am.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I don't know much about narcissism. I have had guests on before that have shared their experiences with me. And if you're willing, could you share a little bit about why you think that you attracted that?
I think I was a little bit gullible, first of all. But I also think I was lonely. And it goes back to that. I didn't want to be alone. I was the perfect storm for him. He was a friend of a friend. Um, he sensed there was marriage problems. In fact, when I started to really realize there was a problem, I went to a female friend and he was the male friend, because I wanted to get both perspectives on what I could do. And I had some crazy ideas, which I won't go into, but some crazy ideas of how could I fix that. Not knowing he was a narcissist. He's got all this personal information about me, which they do use against you later. I played right into his hands. I was lonely and some ways desperate. And then he showers me with attention. He showers me with gifts. And I'm hooked.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
What happened next?
So I did officially leave my husband. I got involved with this man. We were together a total of 10 years. We did leave and go to Colorado. While that was a good decision on one hand, the other is also, again, they will divide you. They will actually isolate you. It was always my dream to go out west, but once again, that information was used against me. I did leave my daughter behind in Virginia because we weren't having a good relationship at the time. But once again, now I'm all alone with this man in a new state. We ended up getting married there. Yeah. And then in 2013, he actually initially asked for the divorce. And I was shocked because at that point I thought, oh, we're not fighting. We hadn't been fighting for a while. Oh, it's better than ever. I don't understand what happened here. And then 2 days later, he backtracked. And I thought, no, there's that little girl. She rose up because I'll say at that point, I look at pictures and I shudder. I'm unrecognizable as to who I was and am. But something in me rose up, even though I was trauma bonded and unaware of that, and said, no, you said you don't want to be married anymore. I don't want to be somewhere I'm not wanted. And I left.
Okay. So good. Can you tell us a little bit about the term trauma bonded?
Yes. So a very common tactic of a narcissist is a three-part system to get you to be basically addicted to them. And it starts with the love bombing. It's all the attention. They're like that white knight, riding in on the horse. They're the man you've always wanted. He was handsome. He was well respected in the community. And he showers me with all this wonderful attention. And then they start to devalue you. A little less attention. They start making snarky comments. And sometimes it's underhanded. He was very covert. I had absolutely no idea he was tearing me down. And then they just discard you. That's when, they're gone for several hours. They don't answer the phone. Or in some situations, they disappear for days. I didn't have that happen. But mentally, he was gone, and then the cycle starts over. But each time it starts, the cycle shortens and they're less what they were in the beginning, the love bomber. It's a little bit less. And I always describe it as you give a child a lollipop and then you snatch it away and then you give it back and you take it away. And that lollipop represents the person that they pretended to be in the beginning. And then you're so addicted to them, you'll do anything they ask of you to get that person back. And then you think, I did something. Because they'll tell you that too.
So it sounds like it's a damn good thing you started off being quite badass.
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing, and again, I don't have firsthand experience of this, but what it sounds like you're saying is it's insidious, the hold that they develop over you or with you.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you realize that, wait a second, can you remember, was there a specific time where you went, okay, I'm taking the opportunity to divorce and I'm running like hell?
Mm-hmm. It was during the divorce process. I have to say, I didn't come to a full realization until about a year afterwards, after I left. But during the divorce, I lost it. I mean, I had what they also call Stockholm syndrome, which is, you've probably heard of kidnap victims who sympathize with their abuser. And it's the same thing. Like, I was still meeting him for dinners and I was still calling or texting him every day. There was that addiction first of all, I didn't even know I'd been abused at this point. I didn't know anything about narcissism. All I knew is that this is the person who I thought was the love of my life. I adored him. I mean, I worshiped him, and now he's gone and I don't know what to do. I can't go back, but I can't go forward. So I reached a point where I was on the threshold of taking my life. I was laying on the floor, sobbing, thinking, do I go get the gun and do I do this? I cannot live like this anymore. But something inside of me says, wait a minute, he's telling everybody you're crazy. If you do this, what ammunition you just gave him, and then you're not going to be here to say, oh no, I am not. And so that decision for me, and it's been, I think, it's propelled into today of, I got up off that floor. I worked my butt off this past 11 years to come back from that. And when something gets in the way of that, I'll say, oh no, I've worked too hard. But that was kind of the beginning.
Two things come to mind. Number one, I'm so glad that you found and listened to that little voice, right? So glad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry that you found yourself on the floor. And for all of the men and women that are listening and can relate to your story, I feel, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so glad that that little badass girl came up, right? I'm so glad that she came up. Fast forward a little bit, you got some help.
I did.
And within that help came some realizations of what you actually had been experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the big ahas in that experience outside of the fact that you were actually in an abusive relationship? Because you've already mentioned that. Was there anything else that came out of the support that you got that had you going?
Yeah, in the past, to be honest, I really didn't have friendships with women. I didn't care for women because when you're dysfunctional yourself, you surround yourself with dysfunctional people. So I was around these women that were, they were talking about you behind your back, and those kind that just aren't secure in their own selves. I started going to a spiritual center and I went to a women's group and I started to realize, first of all, that not all women are bad. In fact, they're pretty awesome. And I started to do this huge cleaning house of my friends. And I whittled it down to like 4 or 5 women that I really trusted and I needed badly. One of my friends who has since died of cancer, she was like my rock. She would say, stop calling him. If you, I don't care if it's in the middle of the night, if you want to call him, you call me. She helped me move from Colorado to New Mexico. Um, and that's kind of why I'm doing it, is for her, for Pam, because she was just this amazing, strong woman. And I needed that in my life. So I realized then I need community. I need to surround myself with people who are better than me so I can rise to where they are.
What a great realization. And really it's why I do this show, is to highlight the need for community and to highlight the need for conversation, because I've said it a couple times. This is kind of new to me. I've heard of it, obviously, and I've met women through the work that I do, but things like this need to be spoken about way more so that it becomes, I don't want to say natural, but so that we're not afraid of the conversation, so that we can encourage people that perhaps are in that position to recognize, wait a second, that sounds kind of like what I'm going through. And maybe that will spark a change in their life as well. So I want to thank you again for joining us and talking about this today. Let's talk about where you're at today, because you're no longer an executive assistant. You just started a business. In fact, folks, just before I hit the record button and I was reading through what I'd written as our introduction, I went, wait a second, April of 2024, that's like 4 months ago. What the hell? Brand spanking new. And she giggled, right? It was really cute. So what happened between leaving the corporate world and deciding to start your own business?
Yes. So I turned 55 this year and I felt like this guy, I know, yeah. In January, I wrote on Facebook that I am declaring this my year of joy, and anything that doesn't bring me joy, I need to get rid of. And so I started really, looking at my life. Okay, I'm a gypsy. I move around a lot, and I've been trying to basically get that out of my system. It's not. I'm going to move again, and I'm just going to accept this is who I am. People tell me I'm too much. No, I'm not. I just have high standards. You just can't meet them. But I knew, okay, the man I worked for, great person, but I wasn't happy there for other reasons. And I also am very rebellious, to be quite frank. I'm not cut out for working for other people. I don't like to be told what to do. And there was just a series of events where I decided to leave that job. And I thought for a while going back into temp work, going back into administrative assistant, but I'm so done with that. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to. I have some access to some savings. I think I'm going to set a year goal. I'm going to pull out a year's worth of income and set a year goal that I'm going to replace my income by April of the following year. And just jumped. I do this. I mean, I'll move to new towns, not know anyone, not have a job. And so I just went in faith, action every day, of course. But yeah, it was about this. I started a business in 2013. And then when I went through my divorce, I gave it up. And crazy enough, it was about empowerment. And here I am in an abusive relationship, losing my power. But that I decided I gave that up and I want to go back to that.
Wow. Okay, such badassery, first of all. But here's the thing, recognizing who you are is the crux of being a badass.
Mhm.
And this understanding that you don't have to be for everyone. In fact, that's not even your business. Your
Right.
business is to be true to you. And it can be incredibly challenging for women, especially to be true to themselves for all kinds of reasons that we don't even need to go into. But love the fearlessness of going for what you want. Was it, I know it's only been 4 months, but was it as easy and or as hard as you were thinking it would be?
Mhm. And I want to clarify, I'm not fearless. I am terrified. I am absolutely terrified. But I,
Not fearless, then what are you? Because sometimes we think of being badass as you don't have any fear or you actually
yeah,
fight the fear. So tell me what you actually are. If not fearless,
um, I know. I feel, well, it goes back to the very first self-help book I read, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I channel my fear. It's kind of like when I perform, when I sing, I get stage fright every time. I channel that, I push it down and say, how can I use it in a productive manner? I say, okay, yeah, I'm terrified. But it's something I heard once. The pain of where I was greater than the pain of where I'm going. And so it's okay to be afraid because you know what? I can be uncomfortable in my job and be miserable in a year and still be stuck there. Or I can be uncomfortable now and be working towards something that is going to make me happy and fulfilled.
so good to hear. And it's kind of like that saying, choose your hard. Life is full of hard things.
Yes.
You get to
Yes.
choose. When you take control and you choose your hard, then funnily enough, it doesn't seem that hard anymore because you've made choice. You're in control.
Yeah. And I'm happier than I've ever been, to be honest.
I love that. How were you introduced to somatic work?
Yeah. Just by chance, actually. Last year, I read self-help books every day. I listen to them in my car every time I drive. I have an audiobook on. And I bought The Body Keeps the Score. Is it Bessel von der Koch or something like
I
that?
can't pronounce it, but it's on my bedside table.
Hmm. I had heard I attended a support group for narcissistic abuse as well, like for me, and I had heard the word somatic, and then this book came across my recommended, and I just listened to it, and I was very, very interested in it. I started blogging a year before I quit my job about my journey. Very honest, by the way, and there are things that are in that blog that are no longer true in my life, but I left them there. But anyway, as I was thinking about what kind of business do I want, I remembered that book. And this is actually even before I started quit, to be honest, this is before I quit my job. I was going to try to like do both for a while. And so I started researching different type of coaching platforms. And Caroline Strawson has the first in the world, apparently, that's called Somatic Trauma Informed Coaching. And it's a new thing. While I'm still going to get a certification in narcissism, I wanted to do this first because it's new, it's different, and I thought maybe it would be a little bit of an edge. So somatics basically is your nervous system, your body. When we experience things in our world, whether good or bad, we have body sensations, whether we realize it or not. And so it's focusing in on that and being aware of that. And when did we feel that before? And kind of getting in touch with most of the time, it's our little child inside of us. And either validating or working through whatever's going on. But yeah, it was just, I started to get a degree in psychology at Washington State. So it's always been an interest.
So, so good. So, tell us about your business and how you work with your clients.
Mhm. So I do a couple of different things. I do have a free support group for women only on Meetup. And I also do one-on-one coaching sessions. And those are I have kind of shifted a little bit. I'm going to do men and women because I've been approached by a couple of men with that request. And I just focus on the body. Basically, I help you to come to your own conclusions. Your answers are really all there inside you. You just don't know it. And so, talking about whatever the topic of that day is, thinking about the body sensations, I'll ask questions based on that topic and where we're going. And we'll talk about what you're feeling now, how that connects to your past. And then we work through that and, kind of work through how we can proceed with your healing.
Why are you a badass today with all that you now know about somatic healing, for example, and trauma-informed coaching? What have you learned about yourself that has you going, yeah, I'm so badass?
It's the course. This course, I started taking it in February, and it's not just about being a great coach. It's designed that you go through this massive, massive healing process. One of the assignments we had to do is we had to take a poster board and map out all the trauma in our lifetime and look for patterns. And so I color coded everything. I'm a very colorful person. So I put green for the good things that happened to me, red for the traumatic, and I think blue for like neutral. And I realized in a lot of periods of my life, I had so much trauma, I didn't even have room on the paper. So I picked the worst things. It's that and many other assignments that really got me to understand how I've been carrying all of this dead weight. We call it our backpack of trauma in our course, that I've got all this trauma on my back. And while I've been working on it, it's still with me and it's still dictating my decisions in my love life, in my, all areas of my life. And so my badassery this year has been about releasing that. I've been releasing a lot of trauma. In fact, I'm going to go have some body work done because I'm finding emotionally I'm releasing it, but my body's holding on to it. I did yoga the other day and I'm really, really tight. And so I need physically for that to get released as well.
Okay. Total high five, giving you a high five.
Thank you.
But I know some listeners are going to be listening going, yeah, but what does that mean? WTF, release the trauma? Like, la la, hello. Is that going for a beer with your friends? Is that dancing the night away? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that really looks like in your experience?
Sure. I'll share a personal example of what just happened to me 2 weeks ago. So I went camping 3 hours from my home. And as it always happens, when you're on top of a mountain with no cell service, your car decides that it's going to mess up. It ended up that the transmission had to be replaced. I was fortunate enough to be able to find a visitor center close by and make an appointment. But what happened was they couldn't fix the car that day. They weren't even quite sure what was wrong with it. So I was given a loaner and I drove home. But that process took about 2 weeks. Halfway through that, I have a meltdown. They still didn't know at that point what was wrong with it, if the warranty I purchased was going to cover it. And of course, I wake up in the middle of the night. That's when my demons at least show up. And I'm worrying about it. And something else was going on with a prescription for my dog. So I'm like, I'm angry. No one's listening to me. They're taking advantage of me because I'm a woman and I don't know anything about, blah, blah, blah. So at 5 a.m, finally, I just said, okay, if you need to talk to the manager, take some notes. Talk to the young man one more time and see if he's blowing you off or what's going on. But then I couldn't settle down. And I was, I felt in my body, my throat is tight. I feel my chest is tight and my heart's racing. And I thought, wait a minute, is this about the car? Or is this something else? And I realized, no, while I'm upset about the car, this is really not what this is about. This is about when I was 4 years old and I felt like this because my dad tore up the house and I was terrified and I was hugging my mom's leg and my mom forced me to hug him, even though I didn't want to. And I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel validated.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
Say it again.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Yes.
Mic drop. So, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's one of the toughest lessons for us as we navigate this journey called life is when we give ourselves permission to really go deep. And when I say go deep, I think of it like this. Keep asking questions until you can't ask any more questions. It's one of the primary things that I talk about with my clients is let's get clarity. Let's be an investigator. Let's be Columbo, that detective from the 70s that everybody pissed everybody off because he just kept asking what seemed like the dumbest questions, but he just was determined to understand. And I think we need to be like that with ourselves. When we have the signal in our body, for example, that we're not happy, never take it at face value, because to your point, it really wasn't about the car. I believe that the world will bring us experiences to highlight what we still need to work on, but it's not always that obvious, right? Because on the face of it, car issue, pain in the ass, everybody's pissing you off, and it just sits here. But what I heard you say was when you recognize it, that wasn't enough. There were still more questions you had of yourself. You went deeper, sort of peeling the layers, and you got to the real challenge, which was often when we're young, we have misunderstandings about what a certain action means about us, because our brain, we're just little people, right? Our brain doesn't stop. I think not until our 20s does our brain actually stop growing. But so when we're little, quite often we either see something or we hear something and we put it together incorrectly and we make it mean something about us. That's just not true, but it lives in our body. It lives in our body. So how did you clear that? Was it just the recognition, or is there something that you do once you've got the recognition? And if so, please share with us.
Yeah. And this is kind of what we do in our sessions too, is, first there's the recognition, but then there's this gives me an opportunity to kind of go back in time and say, okay, 4-year-old Darla, you are terrified, validating it. First of all, your feelings are valid. You were scared and you had every right to be scared. People look really big and tall when you're 4, and your dad was screaming and yelling and could be violent at times. And your mom didn't protect you. First of all, just be acknowledged that no one was there for you when you were so tiny. Kind of hug yourself virtually in time. Sometimes I recommend writing a letter to your previous self. Just think about that and hold space for that and say, wow, that really sucked. And just say, it's okay, because you know what? You're going to grow up and you're going to have all this other stuff happen, whatever, but you're going to grow up. And one day you're going to be in this moment and you're going to say, that happened for a reason, because all of those things that happened to me in the past we talked about the stepping stones in the beginning. Those are the stepping stones that have brought me right to where I am today.
Oh, so good. Thank you for sharing that story with us. I can see the emotion in your face, and I've done inner child work. I do it with my clients. We incorporate a technique from the University of Santa Monica, compassionate self-forgiveness, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's not always easy to get there, but really part of being a badass is the courage to do the work. Even if you are at the stage where you're just saying, I recognize that I'm not happy. Right? That's a big step.
Right.
That's a big step, peeps. So if that's where you are in your journey, celebrate it. Recognize that's a celebration. Okay. You are a somatic trauma-informed coach. Do you do your sessions in person, or do you do them online, or is it a combination of both?
They're all online. So I do them on Zoom. So I can do them anywhere in the world. Anyone in the world can do them, which is
so good. One thing that I've been meaning to ask, because I'm just so damn curious, is you're a performer? What the hell? What do you perform? Yes. Are you a singer, dancer?
I sing. Well, I did take dance lessons years ago, and I love dancing. You'll often, probably people from the Verde Valley are like, I know her, because I get around. I'm pretty boisterous, but yes. So I dance a lot. I come from a musical family. Yes, so it's something that I've pursued off and on. And once again, here we go. I've set it to the side. And so this year I decided to get a little bit more active. While I'm not in a committed band yet, I've been going all around town. I talk to everyone everywhere I go. So I often will show up and a band will say, come on up and sing, and do a variety, of blues, classic rock, Fleetwood Mac. It is, I have to say, music is my greatest joy.
Oh, so, so good. So, so good. So another tip, people listening, acknowledging what fills your cup
Mhm.
and working to get more of that in your life, total
Mhm.
badass. Total badassery to do that, right? So I totally commend you on that. I know that music is super important to me. I listen to music constantly and I go through phases of who I like best. And, my kids laugh because they're the only kids that they know that know the Dave Matthews Band because I took my husband and I loved DMB, followed them, went on, seen them in multiple times and always dragged the kids with us. And I remember she was only 5 or 6. She's like, I don't want to watch the Dave Matthews Band again, Mom. I'm like, I don't care. I don't have a babysitter. Let's go. But by the same token, they also grew up knowing classic rock because that's what, we always played stuff. So I do love music myself. And it really has the ability to transport me and transport people, which is why I think so many people, that's why music and the arts in general play such an important part in our role. Okay, so badass act, you're going after performing more.
Mhm.
Anything else on the horizon for you as far as really honoring who you are today and the journey that you've been on? What else
Mhm.
do you have in the works, if anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, personally, to date with intention. And
Ooh,
yeah, and this year I started that as well. And to be honest, I follow Matthew Hussey and his Love Life Club. I watch videos every day. He's just been so phenomenal. And it's not just about dating well, but also being well. It's about healing. I did a live gratitude session at 11 this morning, 2 hours ago with his brother. Perfect for this podcast. Um, but yeah, it's really about honoring my needs. And I can compromise for your needs, but when they get in the way of mine, then that's when I have to say, if we can't work this out, then I need to walk. And that has been a different approach for me.
wow.
Um, yeah.
So is it also, because what I'm hearing is two things. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but first comes clarity on what it is that you want. Then comes courage to set the boundaries and maybe to pivot when needed or to recognize your limits. Because you mentioned, you may
Mhm.
compromise for them, but when it gets in the way of what you want, then that's a no-go.
Mhm.
So do you see it as being sort of a multi-step process?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what step are you most comfortable in right now?
Oh, I've always been comfortable in saying no. I've always been, but I think it's ending it. I met somebody that actually I really liked a lot, had a lot of fun with him. I only dated him for a couple of months because we were in different directions. I'm looking for a long-term committed relationship, and that's not where he is in his life. And I also wanted a willing participant. I don't want a people pleaser or someone's a yes man. I want someone who's going to say yes because they want to say yes. So that long-term commitment, that was the biggie. And so I had to, even though I really liked him, I was kind of falling in love with him a little bit. I had to say no. I had to leave. Yeah.
That took some courage, I'm sure.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. So what are some of just a couple tips that you want to share with our audience and how you intentionally choose badassery over something else?
Hmm.
In other words, give us some tips on how you choose yourself for
Yes.
yourself. Yeah, some tips.
First, celebrate your successes. I always say everyone's in a different place. I see that in my support groups. Some are just beginning, some are like they're at that badass level. But I say, no matter how small it is, even if you just made your bed, I made my bed today, and yesterday I couldn't even get out of it. Those things. I said no to someone today, and I've never done that before. Um, you know what? I just did something for me. Celebrate them, write them down, and look back on them. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is I do, gosh, what's really helped me this year is to find something that's just yours, particularly if you're in an abusive relationship, because they take so much. Even if it's a craft or you like dancing or hey, I like to go to the movies or I love to go out to eat. You know, Do something by yourself that brings you joy, because then you're investing in yourself.
I love
Third,
I love it.
right?
Before you give me the third one, I want to just
Yeah.
add to that, because what I hear when you say that is this understanding that in order for the world to treat you the way that you want to be treated, you have to acknowledge your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Part
Yeah.
of that, the minute you do something for yourself, just for yourself, that fills your cup, you're sending a message to the universe. I am deserving of alone time, of me time, of a great meal, of Dairy Queen. That would be my personal favorite. But
Yeah.
it does make, you are sending a signal to the world on your worth when you
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it. And doing stuff for yourself is one way of acknowledging your worth. So, okay, I just wanted to add that in there. Okay, number three. What's
Number three.
a third tip?
I would say just be kind to yourself, because setbacks are inevitable. I have setbacks every day. And to be transparent, I have major anxiety. I probably have some form of anxiety every single day. And every day. But when you have a setback, be okay with that. Say, you know what? I'm having a moment. Or if you made a decision that you're unhappy with, forgive yourself for that and say, that was the decision I made and who I was in that moment. And I did the best I could. And it's okay.
So powerful. It reminds me of this idea that some days we only can give 50% of our
Yeah.
energy, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, whatever. But if all you can give is 50%, in fact, I think Jim Quick does posts about this quite a bit. He's a brain guru. If you can only give 50% and you give 50%, you've given it your all.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a bit of a mindset. It's a mindset change, which can be
Mhm.
so powerful. Oh my goodness, Darla, I have just really loved chatting with you today. Your energy is infectious. You are a serious badass. And, as a call out to fellow badasses in the world, share your story, have the conversation, whether it doesn't necessarily need to be on a, global podcast, but the more you share your story, the more opportunity that is created in your world for change, right? So you never know who needs to hear your story. So if you have something to share, don't hesitate to share it, whether it's just between you and your book, whether you journal it, talk to somebody about it, talk to a group about it, or actually look for help on whatever it is that you're navigating. It is badass to look for help, ask for help, and to recognize just how amazing you are, regardless of where you've come from or the experiences that you've had.
Yes.
Thank you so much for jumping on this Zoom with me today, Darla. And I do wish you all the best. Folks, check the show notes, because everything that she shared with me, I'm going to share with you, and then some, if I can, if something else changes further down the line. But we'd love your feedback on today's episode. So please, if you've enjoyed our conversation today, rate, and share it with your friends. My name is Mahara. This has been the Art of Badassery. Special shout out and thank you to my guest today, Darla. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to another badass episode. Your support means the world to me. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, share, and rate the episode on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback keeps the badassery flowing. And hey, if you're ready to unleash your inner badass and conquer whatever life throws your way, why not book a complimentary badass breakthrough session? Just click the link in the show notes to schedule your session, and let's kick some serious butt together. Until next time, stay fearless, stay fabulous, and of course, stay badass. This is Mahara signing off.